I'm going to be talking about 10 ways Android is just better than iOS. I did promise this video, so here it is. First things first for me is definitely having the Google Assistant. It's one of the best things that I personally love about Android is that I can easily use Google whenever I need to, because in my opinion, Siri is just nowhere near as advanced as Google, and for me, my ecosystem of smart devices consists around Google. This is one reason why I absolutely love when I'm on Android, because I can easily ask Google a simple question to turn on my lights, turn off the lights, and she understands me so much easier and so much quicker. She also understands more in-depth questions. For example, if I ask her, what's the tallest building in the world, she will come back with me and tell me an answer, and I can continue that conversation on with her being aware of what I've said in the past. Now, this feature has just come to iOS, which is a real shame because Android has had this for years now. Google has always been on top with this, and personally, the Google Assistant, in my opinion, is 10 times better. Another thing I love about Android is that they have a fingerprint sensor and facial recognition. I love having the option. Now for me, I personally, I'm not really partial to both. I like Face ID, I like the fingerprint sensor. So for me, I don't really mind which one it has, but I do find that there's a cool factor behind under-screen fingerprint sensors. Now before, this was a technology that no one actually expected to happen, and it's really cool. If you go back 10 years, there was apps that were pretending to have this, and now we have this feature. And it's really cool for me, honestly, because the way that it can scan your fingerprint underneath the glass and it can still recognize you is honestly a really cool technology to me. And I do really appreciate that manufacturers do go into this time to make this and give you the option, because some people just do not like Face ID. That's mainly because in dark situations, they can't use it. In their fingerprint, they could use it in a dark situation. It makes so much more sense, and you can have your phone off or lying on a table, put your fingerprint on, and there you go. Your phone is now unlocked. It is honestly a quicker and easier way to unlock your phone sometimes. I do partially agree that fingerprint sensors can be more convenient in some situations. One thing I definitely have to say about Android is, in my experience, I found that when I'm charging the phone, it tends to charge quicker. Now this is because Apple don't support as high speeds as people like Samsung and definitely OnePlus. But I would definitely have to say charging speed isn't everything, and I do personally think that sometimes having a slower charging speed can make your battery life last longer. Now you may be asking, what do I mean by that? The faster your charging speed, the faster your battery is charging. That's an obvious one, right? But the issues come when you're doing this too often. Your battery health deteriorates quicker and quicker and quicker. Now, this is obviously going to be an issue for long-term use. If you're using your phone over a long time, good couple of years, the battery eventually is going to deteriorate. So in my opinion, I'd personally want a bigger battery with also bigger charging speeds. Now this is what we find on the Samsung devices, that you can have a fast charging speed and you can also have the nice big battery, and I do appreciate this. I just hope that manufacturers do find a way that they can have big batteries, big charging speeds, and the battery doesn't deteriorate as quickly, because I do think that we are actually in a time where we don't really know what's going to happen to these warp charging phones after a long amount of time. My personal opinion is that these battery healths are going to deteriorate really quickly, and after a while you will notice that your battery is dropping really fast. But honestly, if you can charge your phone really quickly, it does mean in a lot of scenarios that you can just quickly pop your phone on charge for 10 minutes, and there you go, 50%, just like that. Now, obviously, another Android feature that everyone always talks about when anyone ever brings up the Android argument has to be customization. Now, you can make your Android phone however you want it to be. If you want your Android phone to be looking like a spaceship, or you want it to be Marvel theme, DC theme, iOS theme, just basic Android, you can do whatever you like to it and you can make it yours. Apple have definitely got better at this, and they definitely let you do slightly more than they used to, but Android will always be king for this. They let you download any apps you want, they let you have any themes you want, different icon packs, different sounds, everything you want in a device, anything you want to do to your device, you can do it. And honestly, it is really cool to see that. I do appreciate that people spend loads of time making these themes, and they're 9 out of 10 free. But for me, I definitely say that themes aren't everything, and customizing Android isn't always everything it's made out to be. I always find that customization can always be a bad thing, not always a good thing on Android, because you can get different bugs that would not happen if you didn't have themes installed. And I definitely say the stock Android experience is always going to be the best experience. But you do have the option. It's nice to give people the option, and I always do think this. If you give someone the option to have themes, and you give them the option to do whatever they want to their phone, if they decide they want your stock OS, fine. But if they don't, they clearly know what they're doing enough to be able to install these themes and come across bugs that come up. they will be fine again. So I always do think if you're on Android and you're installing themes, you definitely do have a bit more know-how and you shouldn't need to worry. Now, one other thing about Android is definitely has to be is you can get them in so many different form factors. You can get folding phones, flip phones, slab phones. You've got the things like the LG Wing. You've got phones that turn into cameras. You've got phones that have got massive batteries. You've got so many options when it comes to Android. Now, options are always a good thing because someone can pick a very specific scenario that they have. If they need a phone that's got massive battery, super strong glass, they can find that and it will be an Android experience. Let alone it might not be a good Android experience, but it will definitely have those features that they need. If they need something with a big battery, find that easily. And that honestly is an amazing thing for me, is that I always think you can always go out and buy an Android phone that's super, super cheap, that has the features you want. And it's honestly really cool to see because you will never find a more unique phone than one you have found. Now, USB-C is one amazing thing that we all definitely come to know and love. Now, Android obviously adopted this first, even though Apple and multiple other companies decided they needed to make a new class or charging port, and obviously USB-C has been a really good one. Now obviously Apple have just adopted this. I do think that it's good that we finally got this standard across all of the different devices, because without that, all of these different charging devices all have different ways that they charge their phones. It's just nice to see some symmetry in all of this chaos. Now, one thing about Android is the way that they organize their notifications. They organize them in a way that when you clear them, all your notification bubbles go, and that you also have a nice organized way of doing things. Everything gets sorted into apps and it all gets sorted into little bubbles. So you will have one notification for WhatsApp, one notification for Instagram, and those Instagram notifications will all be in one. They won't be separate like they are on iOS. When you organize your notifications, you can see the history of them. You can go back as far as 2 years ago if you really want to, and you can also see all of the activity that's happened. So, and there's apps, you can see every single thing. When you look on Android, there is an app, and then under that is all of its notifications that it has in the notification center. Whereas on iOS, all the notifications are together in one thing, but then you'll go to the notification history and there's another Instagram notification. And it's honestly really inconvenient compared to Android where it just puts everything together. I definitely do prefer Android's notification system. Another thing has to be is that Android phones are so much easier accessible than iPhones. Now that definitely has to be one cool thing about Android, is that it can get people into the world of smartphones. Don't get me wrong, they are not going to be amazingly fast Android phones, but they're going to be good enough for someone that just wants a phone to call, text, and that has maybe some apps on it. I really do think that Android does this the best. They make it so that it is easy to access a smartphone, and they make it so that the experience is as good as it possibly can be for the different prices. Definitely a massive win for Android, and I'd have to say that if you are thinking of getting an Android phone, that you've got to consider what price bracket you're going for, because if you go for really cheap, you're not going to get that great performance, and if you go for middle, you're going to get relatively good performance, but you're not going to get amazing performance like you would get on a flagship. But mid-range phones have got so much better at dealing with the power that they have that honestly, it's not as much of a worry as it once was. The final thing I definitely have to say about Android is their cameras. You can have so many different style of cameras. You can have multiple different brands that do completely different things. And I always find that Android's camera apps definitely have way more features that you can do. You can have different modes, different filters, and I honestly do think that's a really cool thing for Android to have compared to iPhone. Whereas on iPhone, everything's simple, you can understand it easy, whereas on Android, you can all have your individual experience, adjust your camera to how you want it to look, and I do definitely think that it's a really good thing that Android offer this multiple customizable camera support, so it's definitely great. If you did enjoy this video, please like and subscribe, and it's been Harry. I'm out. Peace.